Let all mortal flesh keep silence, and with fear and trembling stand. Wonder nothing earthly minded, for with blessing in his hand, Christ our God to us descended, our full homage to demand. King of kings, yet born of Mary, as a man on earth he stood. Lord of lords in human vesture, in the body and the cloud, he will give to all the faithful his answer for heavenly food. Rank on earth the host of heaven, spread the standard on the wing, as the light of darkness endeth from the lamp of endless day. That the bosom hell may vanish, as the darkness clears away. At his feet the saints winged seraph, cherubim with sleepless eye, veil their faces to the presence, as with ceaseless voice they cry, Alleluia, 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 Lord Most High. The eagle soars, as it was thought, close to the sun. In many Anglican churches one sees, as the part of the lectern that holds the Gospel and the book, the form of an eagle, suggesting that the Logos, the Word, in coming into our soul through reading and preaching, invites us to union with the Blessed Trinity and to a soaring above the things of earth towards the sun, towards the source, the eternal energy from which we came and to which we return. John the Divine is the title given to the writer of the Apocalypse. Tradition has it is the same John, and that this fruit of ecstasy and meditation in solitude on Patmos was the conclusion to a life where he could have been truncated by not one but two martyrdoms, according to tradition, which did not have their effect. He was boiled in oil and so on. There is a place in Rome where that is venerated. And we remember how this was the one who took into his home the Blessed Virgin, how this was the one who was close to the Lord's heart and invited to a great intimacy therewith, the one who was a virgin chosen early in life and given over to a certain interiority, outstanding indeed, and a hiddenness which comes through in the Gospel that he wrote. We have just had this reading from the discovery of the empty tomb, how he seeded the place for Peter. He went, probably had an intuition, and left Peter to go in, even though he had got there first, being younger and therefore more energetic. They ran there, excited. And also in the Gospel, he does not name himself directly, but always in the third person, indicating how we should behave. We do not take center stage, but deflect. The preacher, if he is drawing attention to himself, is a thorough nuisance. George Orwell said about good writing that good prose is like a window pane. Now, St. John, despite the fact that he was someone caught up into the mystic realm, when it came to his last days, was unexpectedly simple. We have it from early tradition that he would be invited to give a word to the assembly. St. Polycarp was possibly a boy, an adolescent, when he would be exposed to the teaching of the elderly Apostle John. And he reports how he would be invited to give a word and would always give the same word, which was simply, "Little children, love one another." And eventually the brethren were somewhat puzzled, perhaps even cheesed off by the repetition, and they dared to ask him, why the same word each time? And he simply answered, "My little children, it is all that the Lord said. And if it were just that were done, it would be enough." They were expecting flights of mystical discourse. He told them to love one another. And so, in so doing, he transmitted in a pure and undiluted form the last will and testimony of the Saviour, who, in understandable terms, spoke of the love of the Father, the union with the Father, and the love which he wanted to see in the brethren, indeed the sign and signal of his kingdom on earth. "By this shall men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another." For he, in leaving us, left not a complicated code of rubrics and laws, but one new commandment, which of course gives all when unpacked: love one another. And John, in leaning upon the beating breast of the Lord, knew what that was. And so, when it comes to our outworking of the inhabitation, for we are temples, it is not that complicated. There is perhaps just one hitch which loving souls encounter. It is the fact that they can pour out also the bit that belongs to God. To be concrete, people who easily suck at the soul, in our day it might be through a lot of texting or communication which loses its value by its repetition and insistence, are to be loved in the correct mode, not in a mode that actually takes away from the vertical love. For in the last resort it is all towards there. One last thought. We imitate and indeed resemble, by a process of osmosis, what we love. Those who love the dark, the stark, the ugly, imitate the one from which it emanates, and will gaze upon him for all eternity, for they like gazing upon him in resemblances of him here already. Those who gaze at the fair, the serene, the divine, the beautiful, these orientate themselves naturally towards the light and will contemplate its source for all eternity. There is no major change at the second of departure from the body. The soul follows its inclination and its weight. Let us love the fair, and in that fairness love one another and radiate its warmth. Si solum fiat sufficit. Words of the aged Apostle John, when asked why he always said the same thing. Magister, quare semper hoc loquiris? Master, why do you always say this? And he would always say, when asked to give a word, little children love one another. And he answered simply, that was all the Master said, and if that alone were done, it would be sufficient. To live in love, to love, in love to be, and to be naught but love, but to love well, with loving's art and skill, eternally to be part of the loved, in heaven, in hell, and there for e'er upon a gaze to gaze, unveiled in full at last, be it God or fiend, all seen beyond the screen of yonder days, seen in the visage, hind which here 'twas screened. This is the all, this is the end of all that matters in a day. There is no more, no greater matter here. This measure small is all that shall weigh all evermore. And simple, oddly simple words I hear, as near as this, my little brother here.